Episode 2, Knowledge. Human beings are not troubled by ignorance as much as they are troubled by uncertainty. We can live without answers, but we struggle to live without explanation. We want to know why this happened, why now, why this way. We are taught that knowledge gives control, that understanding brings safety, that clarity protects us from pain. So we gather information, we measure outcomes, we analyze patterns. We convince ourselves that if we knew enough, nothing would catch us off guard. And yet, life keeps undoing us, not because it is chaotic, but because it does not submit to our sense of order. Things unfold that contradict our plans, doors close without warning, loss arrives without explanation. Outcomes resist our logic. At that moment, a quiet fear surfaces beneath the questions. If I cannot understand what is happening, how do I trust that it is part of a design at all? This is where the Quran speaks, not to shame the mind, but to reposition it, not to dismiss knowledge, but to teach it where to stand. So the question is not whether Allah has knowledge. That is assumed and obvious. The question that unsettles the heart is simpler and far more dangerous. If Allah knows and I do not, can I live at peace inside a design I cannot fully understand? The verse we are discussing today is in Surah Al-Baqarah. عسى أن تكرهوا شيئا وهو خير لكم وعسى أن تحبوا شيئا وهو شر لكم والله يعلم وأنتم لا تعلمون. Perhaps you dislike something while it is good for you, and perhaps you love something while it is bad for you. And Allah knows while you do not know. We live in an age addicted to certainty. Every tap reveals a statistic. Every search promises an answer. We have mistaken information for understanding and data for truth. The illusion of mastery grows until a moment arrives that no algorithm can explain, and the veil of control tears. Then this verse descends like light through the fog, not as a reprimand, but as release. Release from the arrogance of thinking we must understand to trust. Release from believing that knowing more will hurt less. The verse invites us to rediscover peace in limitation, to see that not knowing is not a flaw in the design, but a part of it. The Quran exposes this paradox at the core of human judgment. Perhaps you dislike something while it is good for you, and perhaps you love something while it is bad for you. We desire what glitters and flee from what grinds. We measure goodness by ease and avoid anything that unsettles. Yet Allah's mercy often arrives wrapped in delay, in denial, and in difficulty. The verse does not ask us to love pain. It asks us to trust its purpose. It reminds us that our preferences are not proof of what is best, that the same storm that ruins one plan may be sustaining another beyond our sight. To live by this verse is to live without the illusion of control, to walk knowing that comfort is not always mercy, and hardship is not always wrath. Knowledge, when divorced from humility, becomes blindness. Our pursuit of certainty can make us forget the sanctity of mystery. We catalogue the world but lose awe. We explain phenomena but forget who sustains them. The Quran calls us to a higher form of knowledge, not the mastery of things, but the recognition of limits. To know is not to grasp the pattern, but to trust the one who wove it. To admit I do not know is to step closer to the one who does. Abdullah ibn Abbas radiallahu anhuma narrated that the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, Ya ghulam, inni u'allimuka kalimat, ihfadillah yahfadk, ihfadillah tajidhu tujahak, إذا سألت فاسأل الله وإذا استعنت فاستعن بالله واعلم أن الأمة لو اجتمعت على أن ينفعوك بشيء لم ينفعوك إلا بشيء قد كتبه الله لك وإن اجتمعوا على أن يضروك بشيء لم يضروك إلا بشيء قد كتبه الله عليك رفعت الأقلام وجفت الصحف. Be mindful of Allah and He will protect you. Be mindful of Allah and you will find Him before you. If you ask Allah. If you seek help, seek help from Allah. Know that if the entire nation were together to benefit you, they would not benefit you except with what Allah has already written for you. And if they were together to harm you, they will not harm you except with what Allah has written against you. The pens have been lifted and the pages have dried. This is knowledge as serenity, the conviction that nothing escapes decree, that even what misses you was never yours to mourn. It is the kind of knowing that humbles rather than inflates, that turns fear into trust and uncertainty into faith. When the Treaty of Hudaybiyah was signed, confusion rippled through the ranks of the believers. They had marched for pilgrimage and were turning back without one. To them, it looked like defeat, concessions to the Quraysh, no entry into Mecca, a delay of worship. How could loss wear the face of victory? Yet the Prophet ﷺ, anchored in divine knowledge, persevered. And soon it became clear. The truth opened the door to dialogue, to da'wah, to hearts once hostile. The pause they called failure became the bridge to Fath Makkah, the great conquest. The verse came alive in history. What they disliked was good for them, and what they could not see was being written in mercy beyond their horizon. The verse does not end with an answer, it ends with an opening. Allah knows, and you do not know. The distance between your knowledge and His is not ignorance, it is mercy. If you saw what He sees, you would not choose anything different for yourself. So when life contradicts your plans, do not ask why. Ask what for. Because every disruption carries direction, and every delay conceals design. To trust this is not to silence reason, but to let reason bow before revelation. For meaning is not always immediate, and the unseen is never empty. Sometimes what breaks you is what builds you. Sometimes what confuses you is what completes you. And sometimes the absence of answers is the answer. He Jalla wa Ala knows, and that is enough.